I was thinking the other day about something my father said to me. He was a man of few words. He said, the other day my wife tripped and fell while carrying a laundry basket full of iron clothes. All I could do was just stand there and watch it all unfold. And I was thinking about the guy that invented the number 0. Thanks for nothing. You know, the greener grass on the other side of the fence might be a septic tank issue. A fellow once told me, you don't need a parachute to go skydiving, but you do need one if you're going to go twice. I was reading about a man who went to the clinic and he tells the receptionist, I have a 1:30 appointment. And she replied, which doctor? And he replied, no, I just want a regular doctor. There was a man who said he only knew 25 letters of the alphabet, but he didn't know why. I still remember what my grandfather told me just before he kicked the bucket. He said, hey, how far do you think I can kick this bucket? We had a Lego shop opened in our town recently, and people were lined up for blocks. A fellow once told me, what rhymes with orange? And I said, no, it doesn't. You know, since the hockey season has been canceled, no one has seen the Zamboni driver, but I'm sure he'll resurface eventually. My wife texted me the other day and wanted to know what IDK means. And I said, I don't know. She replied, come on, nobody knows what it means? I went to the eye doctor and I told the nurse I see spots in my eyes. She asked if I'd seen a doctor yet. I said, no, just spots. The other day, my wife yelled upstairs to me. She says, do you ever get a shooting pain across your body like someone's got a voodoo doll of you and they're stabbing it? And I said, no. A few minutes later, she said, how about now? I met a man who said he ate a bag of Scrabble tiles one night, and he was afraid that his next trip to the bathroom was going to spell disaster. The other day I was talking with a lady who was complaining that cleaning with alcohol during this pandemic is a total failure. She says nothing gets done after the first bottle. A father was washing his car with his son when his son said, Dad, why don't we use a sponge? In all of this, my neighbor's antique coffee cup collection was stolen recently. She spent all day at the police station looking at mug shots. I was in the big city the other day and they have these HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicle lanes. I got pulled over because I was driving alone in it. I told the officer due to the social distancing, my passenger was in the car behind me. Recently got a telemarketing call. A man was selling caskets and I told him that's the last thing I need. There's an ad in the paper the other day. A man was selling a DeLorean and it said, good shape, low mileage, only driven from time to time. A man once gave me some wisdom. He said, life is like a pastrami on rye with pickles. He was the Dalai Lama. A man was telling me about the time he went to the beach and heard a man yelling, help, shark, help. And I asked him, well, what did you do? He said, nothing. I just laughed because I knew the shark wasn't going to help him. I remember my grandpa, the heart of a lion, but he also has a lifetime ban from the zoo now. The animal control stopped our neighbor the other day. He said people were complaining that his dog was chasing children on bicycle. He said his dog doesn't even know how to ride a bicycle. I was reading a study the other day that said that people who have more birthdays tend to live longer. The inventor of the throat lozenge died recently. There's a memorial service, but no coffin. I told my wife I wanted to be cremated. She made me an appointment for next Wednesday. My neighbor knocked on the door at about 3 a.m. the other day, and he says, luckily I was already up playing my bagpipes. My friend David lost his ID. Now he's just known as Dav. My house got broken into the other night. Apparently it's a rash going around. They stole my limbo stick. How low can you go? I was at a store standing in line and they asked me to stand on the X. I said, No way. I grew up watching the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoon. I'm not falling for that. I drove by a church here in town. It said the prophecy class was canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. I thought that's rather odd. I saw an ad that said, I'm addicted to buying old Beatles albums. Does anybody know where I can get help? I recently went to the eye doctor and was diagnosed with color blindness. That one came completely out of the purple. Not to brag or anything, but I can completely forget what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I was reading my daughter's diary when she was young. Apparently, she said I have boundary issues in there. My school guidance counselor told me that the only way I was going to get a full ride to college was if I take the bus. When I was in my senior year, I told my classmates that I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and they just laughed. Well, I can tell you now, no one's laughing. I grew up in a small town. One day, a guy from the big city, he's a comedian, ventriloquist, came to put on a show at our high school. He was really laying it on about our small town and what hicks we were. All of a sudden in the back, a guy yells out, "Hey, I've had just about enough of you making fun of us." And the comedian stopped and he apologized. "Hey, buddy, I'm really sorry." He says, "I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to that guy on your lap." A friend of mine told me he found a note on the refrigerator from his wife. It said, "This isn't working. Goodbye." He said, "She must be mistaken because I opened it and everything should be working fine." A fellow came up and asked how much to hire a church singing group. I said, "You mean a choir?" He said, "Fine, how much to acquire a church singing group?" I knew this guy that bought his girlfriend a bag with instructions in it as a gift. It said, a little sign it said, "Small parts may be present," and a choking hazard. He said, yeah, it was a gag gift. I was reading a recipe the other day. It said, stir coconut oil into the kale. It makes it easier to scrape it into the trash. My neighbor said a guy knocked on his door looking for small donations to a new pool that's going in our town. He went back in and gave him a cup of water. A friend of mine filled out a questionnaire from the YMCA. He wanted to know how they heard about him. He said, from the village people. I overheard a lady asking the waiter how they prepared their chicken. He said, we just come right out and tell them they're going to die. I was telling my grandchildren they had it easy because they had glue sticks. I said, when we were little, I had to eat the glue right out of the jar. I was reading about an anthropologist who decoded a message right at the bottom of a cave drawing by old cavemen, and it said no animals were killed in the making of this sign. I read a sign recently in my mechanic's garage. It said, to avoid injury, don't tell me how to do my job. A friend of mine had a girlfriend who left him for a boomerang salesman. He keeps saying she'll be back. I was reading a blog about a lady on a diet. It said, day 1, I removed all the bad food from the house. It was delicious. Everything is easier said than done, except for talking. That's pretty much the same thing. I was asked the other day if I'd ever been to the opera, and I replied, well, if you count Elmer Fudd singing, killed the wabbit, then yes, I have. My wife said to me, based on the amount of laundry I do each week, I'm going to assume that there are people living in our house I haven't met yet. My therapist said, avoidance is not the answer. Well, time to stop going to that therapist. I had another therapist who said I should stop breaking into his apartment and tell him my problems. And also, he's not my therapist. My therapist said he understands me and everything is going to be fine as long as I keep up with paying the bills. My therapist told me I was finally out of the woods. I guess that would explain all the buildings and cars. My therapist said I have a preoccupation with vengeance. Well, we'll see about that. I can leap off tall buildings in a single bound once. I saw a group of people jogging past my house. It inspired me to get up and close the curtains. I didn't have anything to do the other day, so I looked up the word synonym in the dictionary. It said a word used in place of one you can't spell. I bought a universal remote the other day. I was pretty disappointed to discover that it does not, in fact, control the universe. not even remotely. I was reading another article on work tips. It said work tip number 34, stand up, stretch, take a walk, go to the airport, get on a plane, never return. Here's what's on my bucket list. 4 drumsticks, 2 thighs, original recipe, mashed potatoes with gravy, and extra biscuits. I ran into an old friend from high school today. I ran into a wall, a coffee table, and a telephone pole, and a parked car. Apparently I grabbed my wife's glasses by mistake. I was talking to a guy who said he had just sold a homing pigeon for the 22nd time. Here was a question that was on a history test. What ended in 1896? So one of the students wrote 1895. I have an idea for a new show on TV. It's about an English scholar who travels through time correcting people's grammar. I call it Dr. Whom. My wife just stopped and asked, "You weren't even listening to me, were you?" And I thought, that's a pretty weird way to start a conversation. I tried that Japanese decluttering trend where you hold each thing and throw it out if it doesn't give you any joy. So far, I've thrown out all the vegetables and the electric bill. Here's a fun prank for you. Put $100 in an envelope and mail it to me. I opened a fortune cookie after dinner the other day and it read, "Help, I'm a prisoner in a fortune cookie factory." Didn't have anything to do, so I invented a new word, plagiarism. I was at the gym again today and I saw a guy put a water bottle in a Pringles can holder. Not very bright. If you see someone wearing camouflage, make sure you walk into them to let them know it's working. I gotta go.